The day started like any other, quiet, predictable, and filled with the gentle hum of machines that had become my daily soundtrack. The sterile scent of ethanol mixed with coffee and determination, the air thick with the rhythm of research. My name is Clara Ward, and I was exactly where I had always dreamed to be. My own small lab, my data screens alive with graphs and simulations, and the faint vibration of discovery beneath my fingertips. For the past 6 years, I have been developing a serum designed to repair and regenerate damaged tissue at the cellular level. It wasn't science fiction anymore. It was real, measurable, and on the brink of changing everything we knew about medicine. I called it Project Rebirth because to me, that's what it was. A second chance for those whose bodies had betrayed them. I was 28, a researcher with no family connections in science, no corporate sponsors, just pure persistence and a love for the process. Every data point represented sleepless nights, and every formula was born from solitude and sacrifice. My parents, Richard and Elaine, never understood what I was doing. They were accountants, practical people, numbers and profits their language of love. Growing up, they had supported my education financially, but emotionally, it was always conditional. I remember my father saying, "Dreams are fine, Clara, but they don't pay bills. Get something stable." And yet, I had chased that instability all the way into brilliance. Or at least I thought I had. That morning, I had just finalized a new round of tests showing cellular regeneration rates had improved by 43%. I should have been celebrating. Instead, my mind kept circling back to a conversation I had with my parents 2 months earlier during a rare Sunday visit. My father had asked casually, "So, how's your little experiment going?" I laughed then, not noticing the way he emphasized little. My mother had smiled politely, her eyes flicking to my laptop bag as if it contained something she didn't quite trust. I had brushed it off. They never took my work seriously anyway. The evening sun filtered through my apartment window as I sat at my desk, scrolling absent-mindedly through the latest biotech headlines. And then I froze. There, on a glossy press release at the top of the feed, was the headline that would split my world in two. Ward Biotech announces groundbreaking regeneration formula. Industry experts predict $3.7 billion valuation. At first, my brain refused to connect the dots. Ward Biotech. It wasn't exactly an uncommon name, right? Maybe it was just a coincidence. But curiosity clawed at me until I clicked. And then I saw it. The formula name, the project title, even the phrasing in their presentation slides. Every part of it was mine. But the names listed under the company's founders weren't research partners or scientists. They were Richard and Elaine Ward, my parents. The air around me seemed to thicken. My heart pounded so loudly I could barely hear the hum of my old desktop. I scrolled further, and there they were, my parents, smiling for the cameras, standing in front of a futuristic blue backdrop that read, Ward Biotech, pioneering the future of regeneration. My father looked confident, polished in a tailored suit, his arm resting casually around my mother, who was beaming like she'd just won the lottery. A journalist's caption quoted them. It was our daughter's early curiosity that inspired us to explore regenerative possibilities. As a family, we've worked hard to bring this dream to life. My breath caught in my throat. Our dream? I whispered aloud. My hands trembled as I clicked through the interview footage embedded below the article. My father was laughing in one clip, telling the interviewer how the idea came to him after years of seeing wasted potential in the medical field. My mother added softly, family ideas become family success stories. Something inside me snapped. I didn't even remember standing up. The laptop's glow flickered off my trembling hands as my chest filled with a slow, suffocating rage. My research wasn't stored on any company server. It had all been kept in a shared home cloud drive I'd used years ago when I couldn't afford premium lab storage. I had trusted my parents to manage the payments for that account. They had my passwords, my files, everything. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe they didn't understand what they were doing. Perhaps it was a misunderstanding. But deep down, a small, brutal part of me already knew better. They hadn't called me in weeks, not even to tell me about their company. They didn't plan to. Then my phone buzzed. A message from my college friend and former lab partner, Naomi. "Clara, is this your work? Check this out." Attached is a news screenshot with the words "Ward Biotech hits $3, 7 billion valuation." That number spun in my head like a cruel joke. $3.7 billion. That was my formula. My work. My name should have been there. I felt sick. My hands were cold, my mouth dry, my vision tunneling. Without thinking, I grabbed my keys and stormed out of my apartment. The drive to my parents' house blurred into flashes of streetlights and adrenaline. Every red light felt like an insult. By the time I reached their mansion, an elegant, modern thing with silver gates and too many windows, I was shaking from rage and disbelief. Their driveway gleamed with 2 new cars I hadn't seen before, both brand new models that screamed luxury. I didn't knock, I just walked in. My parents were in the dining room mid-dinner, their plates still steaming. My mother looked up first, startled but not surprised. "Clara, honey, we were just talking about you." Her voice was light, practiced. My father didn't even look up right away. I ignored the chair she motioned toward. "When?" I said quietly. "Were you going to tell me?" My father looked up now, eyebrows furrowing slightly. "Tell you what, sweetheart." I unlocked my phone, pulled up the article, and tossed it on the table between them. "This," I hissed. "My research, my formula, my data. The serum I've been working on for 6 years. You're calling it yours." My father leaned back, unbothered, cutting his steak with deliberate calm. "Clara, don't be so dramatic. You've been working yourself to death over that project for years. You had no funding, no connections, no strategy. We simply made it real." "Made it real?" I repeated, my voice shaking. "You mean stole it?" My mother reached for my hand, her tone soft and patronizing. "Darling, please. You've always been such a perfectionist. We didn't steal anything. We just helped. You should be thanking us. Now your work is out there helping people. Isn't that what you wanted?" I pulled my hand away. "Helping people? You didn't even credit me," my father sighed, putting down his knife. "You weren't ready to handle it, Clara. You're too emotional. You'd have buried your work under self-doubt like you always do. We gave it direction, exposure, value." The calmness in his voice lit something inside me I didn't know existed. "Value?" I said through gritted teeth. "You sold me. You sold everything I've built, my life's work, for profit." My mother's expression shifted to something like pity, but there was a glint behind it, sharp and cold. "Sweetheart, what's ours is yours, and what's yours is ours. We're family. You'll benefit too. We'll make sure of it." That was when I understood. They didn't just see my research as a project, they saw it as an asset. To them, I wasn't a daughter. I was an investment that had finally paid off. I stared at them for a long moment, feeling the last thread of trust snap silently in my chest. Then I said, "Congratulations, you've made your fortune, but you've lost me." I turned to leave, my legs trembling, my hands clenched into fists. My father's voice followed me down the hall, steady and infuriatingly calm. "Don't be childish, Clara. You should be proud. You made us all rich. Proud." That word hit me like ice. Outside, the night air was cold and heavy, pressing against my lungs. I sat in my car for a long time, the engine off, staring at the house where I'd grown up, a house that suddenly looked alien. My reflection in the windshield looked hollow, but behind that emptiness was something new, a slow-burning fire. They thought I'd stay quiet, broken, obedient. But I wasn't the same girl who once sought their approval. I was the woman who built a billion-dollar miracle from nothing but faith and data, and I wasn't going to let them erase me. That night, as the streetlights flickered above, I made a silent vow. If they thought this was over, they didn't know me at all. The weeks that followed were a blur of silence and fury. After that night at my parents' house, I packed a small duffel bag, left my apartment keys on the kitchen counter, and disappeared. No calls, no messages, no explanations. I deactivated my social media accounts, changed my number, and moved into a small, worn-down apartment on the other side of the city. One of those places where the walls were thin and no one asked questions. The world was celebrating Ward Biotech, but I was grieving. Grieving the betrayal, the years of work stolen from me, and the trust that had died the moment I saw my parents smiling on that press stage. I would wake up every morning drenched in a mixture of anger and disbelief, haunted by the echo of my father's voice. You should be proud. You made us all rich. Proud. The word made me sick. For days, I watched their success unfold from the shadows. News outlets called them visionary pioneers in regenerative medicine. The headlines were relentless. Ward Biotech revolutionizes tissue healing. The power couple, redefining modern science. The Ward family. A legacy of innovation. Every time I saw their faces, my mother's soft, graceful smile beside my father's smug confidence, I felt my blood boil. They looked perfect, untouchable, respected. Meanwhile, I was hiding in a one-room flat, eating instant noodles, my life's work stripped from me. But even in that darkness, one thing kept me going: the truth. They had stolen my research, but they hadn't taken my evidence. Every experiment I ever conducted, every formula, every lab note was time-stamped and backed up. I just needed to find it all, organize it, and make them pay. Revenge wasn't my first thought. It was justice. They had taken everything, but I wasn't going to let them keep it. I pulled my old hard drives out of storage and powered up my laptop. It was slow, ancient even, but when the blue login screen appeared, it felt like an old friend coming back to life. The next few weeks became a blur of isolation and obsession. I spent every waking hour retracing the digital fingerprints of my own genius, every saved draft, every test log, every email I'd ever sent to my professors. I opened old folders labeled version 1, version 2, final draft, and even final, really. I compared the data from my old simulations with the numbers my parents had shown in their press conferences. They matched perfectly. Even the decimal inconsistencies, my old rounding errors, were identical. There was no doubt left. They hadn't just borrowed my work. They had copied it line for line. Still, proof alone wasn't enough. My parents had influence, lawyers, and public sympathy. I was just a researcher without a face, dismissed as a nobody. I knew that if I went public too soon, they would crush me before the truth had a chance to breathe. So, I stayed quiet, building my evidence in silence, like a storm gathering over calm water. Sometimes I would play their interviews just to study them. In one, my father said, "Our mission has always been driven by family. Our daughter's curiosity was our starting point, but it was our discipline that made it real." I replayed that line 100 times, analyzing every smirk, every arrogant pause. He had taken my life's purpose and turned it into a brand slogan. My mother, ever graceful, would sit beside him, nodding with that same polite smile, the one she used when she wanted to appear supportive but superior. Their company's success snowballed. They bought a penthouse in New York, appeared at galas, and shook hands with government officials. They were interviewed on Forbes Women of Innovation and Business Weekly. My mother wore designer dresses. My father's words became headlines. And me? I became invisible, forgotten, until I decided I wouldn't be. I started contacting journalists, one by one. Most of them never replied. A few laughed, politely saying it was too sensitive to cover. One even said, "You sound like a bitter daughter trying to claim credit. If you really invented it, why don't you have a patent?" I hung up without replying. They didn't understand. I couldn't afford a patent. I was a researcher living on grants and caffeine. My parents had the money, the access, and the business registration in their name. They'd stolen my work and made it legal. Just when I was about to lose hope, I found a reply in my inbox. It was from an independent investigative outlet called TruthArc. The message was short: "We're interested. Can we meet? Bring evidence." I met the journalist, a woman named Leah, at a dimly lit cafe downtown. She looked young but sharp, her eyes full of that relentless curiosity I recognized in myself. I brought everything: flash drives, notebooks, hard copies, even printed graphs with my handwriting scribbled in the margins. She listened quietly for nearly 2 hours as I explained everything, from the research concept to the moment I discovered their betrayal. When I finished, she leaned back, her fingers steepled beneath her chin. "This is huge," she said softly. "If this is real, it's not just a story, it's a scandal. But if we publish this, it'll destroy your parents' careers. Their lives. Are you sure you want that?" I met her eyes and said the only truth that mattered. They destroyed mine first. That night, Leah and her small team began verifying everything. She contacted my former professors, who confirmed my authorship. She compared metadata from my files to that used in Ward Biotech's patents. The results were undeniable. Every timestamp pointed back to me. Meanwhile, online forums started buzzing with whispers. Anonymous users began speculating about a ghost scientist who'd been erased from the company's history. At first, no one believed it. But then fragments of my research started appearing on niche academic blogs, shared by former colleagues who still remembered me. The story began to grow, like cracks in glass. My parents must have felt it because soon my phone began to ring again. Unknown numbers, then familiar ones. My mother's soft voice on voicemail. "Clara, sweetheart, we need to talk. You're making a mistake." Then my father's colder tone. "I know what you're doing. Stop it now before you regret it." I never replied. The silence between us became a wall neither of us could cross. Then, one morning, everything changed. I woke up to the sound of dozens of notifications blowing up my phone. My inbox was flooded, my name trending on social media. Leah had published the exposé. The headline burned into my screen. "The $3.7 billion betrayal. Daughter's research stolen by her own parents." My heart pounded as I read the article. Every detail was there: my name, my work, my emails, my professor's statements, even screenshots of matching data files. The story spread like wildfire. Within hours, every major outlet had picked it up. Ward Biotech's official website crashed from public outrage. TV hosts who had once praised my parents were now replaying their old interviews with disgust. Commentators called them frauds, liars, parasites on their own child. I watched the chaos unfold with shaking hands. My parents' empire began to crumble in real time. Ward Biotech's stock price plummeted 45% overnight. Investors backed out. Lawsuits began piling up. Their mansion was suddenly surrounded by paparazzi. My father tried to do damage control, issuing a statement calling it a family misunderstanding. My mother went on television, teary-eyed, claiming, "We only wanted to protect her." But the public wasn't buying it. The world had already chosen its side. That evening, I sat alone in my apartment, the light from my computer flickering across my tired face. For the first time in months, I wasn't invisible anymore. My inbox was full of messages, some from strangers offering support, others from media outlets begging for interviews. But I didn't respond to any of them. I just sat there breathing. For the first time in months, I felt something close to peace. Still, deep down, I knew it wasn't over. My parents had been exposed, yes, but exposure wasn't justice. They still owned part of my patent registration. They still held shares in the company that had stolen my name. I could hear my father's voice in my head even now, arrogant and calm. "You should be proud. You made us all rich." No, I thought. I will make this right. Not through noise, not through anger, but through proof, through law, through undeniable truth. They had built their empire on my foundation, and I would be the one to watch it burn. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Casting long shadows across the cracked walls of my tiny apartment, I opened my laptop again. I wasn't finished, not yet. The storm had only just begun. The court battle that followed was unlike anything I had ever imagined. It wasn't just a fight for ownership. It was a fight for my name, my integrity, and the years of my life that my parents had erased for their own gain. The moment I filed the lawsuit against them, Clara Ward versus Richard and Elaine Ward, the media erupted again. The tabloids called it the family war of the century, and news channels ran headlines like "Daughter Sues Billionaire Parents Over $3.7 billion invention." I tried to ignore the noise, but deep down, I knew this wasn't just my story anymore. It was a public spectacle, and every move I made would be judged. My parents, of course, hired the most expensive legal team money could buy, men in $1,000 suits with polished smiles who specialized in corporate damage control. Their strategy was clear from the first hearing: discredit me. They painted me as an ungrateful, unstable daughter seeking attention, a woman incapable of managing her emotions or her own success. They argued that I had permitted them to use the files, that it was a collaborative family project, that I was reinterpreting history out of bitterness. I sat there in the courtroom, my hands clenched under the table, as my father's lawyer called me a confused scientist who didn't understand business, but they underestimated one thing: truth leaves a trail. My lawyers, though fewer and less flashy, were meticulous. We laid out the evidence like a map of betrayal: the original research files, metadata proving my timestamps predated the company's creation, the academic citations in my name, the university's lab records, and even my professor's sworn statements confirming I was the sole creator of the regenerative serum. When the judge examined the documents, his eyes narrowed slightly. My parents' legal team tried to twist it, to claim that since we were family, there had been an implied joint ownership. But science doesn't care about family sentiment. It cares about data, proof, and authorship. The hearings dragged on for months. Each day was a performance. My parents arrived in coordinated outfits, walking hand in hand for the cameras, still trying to look like victims of an ungrateful daughter. But behind closed doors, their facade cracked. My father's confidence began to waver under cross-examination. When he was asked to explain a series of technical terms from my research paper, he stuttered. I oversaw the, general framework," he said, glancing nervously at his attorney. The courtroom went silent. Even the jury could see it. He didn't understand the work he claimed to have created. Then came the emails. My legal team had recovered archived messages from years earlier, showing my father requesting access to my lab files for safe backup purposes. Another one, from my mother to him, read, "We can finally make this happen. She'll thank us later." That was the moment everything shifted. The silence in the courtroom was suffocating. My parents avoided my eyes, their expressions pale and hollow. The same people who once smiled proudly for cameras were now reduced to shadows of themselves, cornered by their own arrogance. I sat through every session, every accusation, every attempt they made to twist the truth. I didn't speak until I was called to the stand. When I did, my voice was steady. I told the court about my work, the sleepless nights, the years of research, the emotional toll of realizing my own parents had stolen from me. I told them how they had built their wealth on my creation, and how they had dismissed me as if I were nothing. The courtroom was silent when I finished. For once, I didn't feel small or broken. I felt powerful. My mother took the stand next. She cried, soft, deliberate tears that she knew cameras would love. She spoke about family unity, about a mother's love being misunderstood. But then, under cross-examination, she was shown a video clip from a private investor's dinner, one where she proudly declared, "It's our discovery, our little family miracle." Her tears dried instantly. She looked at her hands and said nothing. By the time the closing statements came, the world was already watching. The courtroom overflowed with journalists. Outside, protesters carried signs. "Justice for Clara. You can't patent betrayal. Truth over greed." My parents had become symbols of deceit. I had become a reluctant hero. But I didn't feel like one. I was exhausted. Every time I saw them sitting across from me, people I once called Mom and Dad, I felt another piece of my old self fading away. The verdict came on a rainy Friday afternoon. The judge's voice was calm, deliberate, unshakable. In the matter of intellectual property ownership, the court finds in favor of the plaintiff, Dr. Clara Ward. I didn't move at first. I just sat there frozen, as his words washed over me like thunder. The defendants, Richard and Elaine Ward, are hereby ordered to transfer full rights, ownership, and future profits of the research known as Project Rebirth to the plaintiff. Furthermore, damages for $185 million shall be awarded to compensate for emotional and financial distress. My parents didn't look at me. My father's jaw was tight, his face a mask of rage and disbelief. My mother's eyes were glassy, her hands trembling. When the gavel struck the final time, I finally exhaled. It wasn't joy I felt. It was release. The aftermath was swift and brutal. Ward Biotech's board of directors convened an emergency meeting and voted to remove my parents immediately. Their reputations disintegrated overnight. The company's investors distanced themselves, the media tore into them, and within a week, Ward Biotech's stock value collapsed by 72%. Their empire, built on theft and lies, crumbled to dust. Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed me. Flashbulbs blinded my eyes as microphones thrust toward my face. "Clara, do you have any comment?" one of them shouted. I paused, the rain soaking through my coat, my reflection rippling in the puddles beneath me. Then I said quietly, "I built my dream with love and science. They tried to steal both. But you can't patent betrayal, and you can't silence truth." That quote went viral within hours. Overnight, my name replaced theirs in headlines. Dr. Clara Ward, the scientist who fought back. I received hundreds of messages from people, students, researchers, even strangers thanking me for standing up, for proving that truth could still win. But I didn't celebrate. Not yet. In the months that followed, I took back control of my work. I rebranded the project under a new name, Phoenix Therapeutics, a symbol of rebirth and resilience. The logo was simple, a small flame rising from ashes. Investors who once ignored me now sought me out, not out of pity but respect. The government granted me exclusive rights and protection under new innovation laws inspired by my case. For the first time in years, I felt free. But freedom came with ghosts. Some nights, I'd wake up from dreams of that dinner table, the moment my father said, "We're selling your research." I'd see my mother's eyes, full of both love and betrayal. I wondered if they ever thought about me now, if they regretted what they'd done, or if they still justified it in their minds as helping. I didn't hate them anymore, but I couldn't forgive them either. A few months after the verdict, I received a letter with no return address. Inside was a single sentence written in my father's handwriting. "We never meant to hurt you." I stared at it for a long time before folding it neatly and locking it away. Some wounds don't close, they just stop bleeding. Phoenix Therapeutics grew faster than I'd dared to hope. We secured global patents, partnered with hospitals, and began trials for new treatments derived from my original serum. When I saw the first patient walk again after a devastating spinal injury, tears filled my eyes, not of pain, but pride. This was what I had always wanted, to help, to heal, to make something that mattered. One evening, I stood in the new headquarters of my company, watching the sunset cast gold across the glass walls. I saw my reflection, older, wiser, but unbroken. The world now knew my name, but that wasn't what mattered. What mattered was that I had taken back my story. Sometimes I still think about that first night, the dinner where everything fell apart. It feels like another lifetime. I remember the taste of betrayal, sharp as metal, and the coldness in my father's voice. I remember how it felt to walk away from everything I thought I knew. But if I hadn't, I would never have become who I am now. Betrayal taught me something my parents never could, that power built on lies will always collapse. And truth, no matter how long it takes, will always rise from the ashes. And so, every time I walk past the plaque outside my lab door that reads, Dr. Clara Ward, founder, Phoenix Therapeutics, I smile, not because I won, but because I survived. Because I rose. Because I am no longer the daughter whose parents stole her dream. I am the woman who reclaimed it. Because sometimes revenge isn't destruction. Sometimes it's success so bright it blinds those who doubted you. And in the end, I learned the hardest truth of all. Betrayal doesn't always come from enemies. Sometimes it comes from the ones who sit across from you at dinner, smiling while they sell your soul for a fortune.